Good morning everybody. Today I want to talk to you about one of my favourite personal projects. Now, coming up with an original personal project is really difficult, and I'm not talking about a unique composition or idea around an existing landscape or something. I'm talking about a completely fresh concept, something that has never been seen before. And for me, that is the bokeh project. Here are a few examples. So I've said this before, I think it's really important for photographers to have personal projects, especially if you're a full-time photographer, then you want a project that's just for you. But when you're thinking about ideas, they probably won't come to you. So don't overthink it. These ideas will come to you when you're least expecting it. Here's how I came up with the idea. Now, I've been working on this project for a couple of years now, and obviously I just called the first part of it the bokeh project part 1. Now, like all projects, it wasn't perfect to start with, and the first attempt, well, it was an idea. So here's my idea. Up until this point, bokeh, which means out of focus areas of a photograph, were just that. They were either in the foreground or in the background, but never the star of the show. I wanted to make the bokeh the focal point of the photograph, but there's a problem with that. And the problem is quite simple, really. If you don't have anything to focus on in a photograph, it hurts people's eyes and their brain. As you can see from these images here, I was going along the idea of, if you were to make a famous landmark out of focus, there will become a point where you could still recognize it. However, if there's not a single part of that photograph that's in focus, people can't handle it. Their eyes and their brains don't know how to process it. They don't know where to look. So for me, it was back to the drawing board. So it's Christmas time. I was in my lounge taking photographs of my daughter Chloe using a 50mm f1.2 lens, of course at f1.2, wide open, to get the maximum bokeh possible. Now, because Chloe stood quite far away from the tree, I was getting some lovely out of focus light areas. However, didn't really look like a tree anymore. They could have been Christmas decorations or just lights. So the problem is, the closer you bring your subject to the lights, the tree in this instance, you don't get that delicious background bokeh anymore. But I wanted both. However, science wasn't really working in my favor. Okay, quick science lesson. This is how depth of field works. So at the moment, this shot is on a 50mm f1.8 lens at f1.8. I'm about 1.5 meters away from the camera, and therefore everything that is the same distance from the camera, more importantly the sensor, will be in focus. So therefore everything here is in focus. If, for example, I wanted this rock to be out of focus, it's not possible the same distance from the camera or the sensor unless I were to bring it further forward or further back. This is how depth of field works. Second science experiment. So you might be thinking, but Ben, what if you were to use an even faster lens, maybe an f/0.95 or something like that? I don't own one of those, but I'm currently using the Canon 135 f2, which is well known for absolutely destroying backgrounds. Beautiful bokeh coming out of this lens, but the same rules apply. Anything that's the same distance from the sensor, the camera, is in focus. So once again, this rock here is in focus because hopefully the camera is focusing on my face, but if I were to bring that in front of my face, it's out of focus, and then behind. This is the science. There's only one way around this. So the secret to being able to control the focus, regardless of the focal plane, is using a tilt shift lens. So I'm filming at the moment using the Canon 24mm tilt shift lens, and I've not tilted the lens at all. So I'll do this live. If I then go ahead and tilt the lens, you'll see that something funky has happened. Essentially, even though I'm not shooting at a massive aperture, I'm at f3.5, you can see now that the background is out of focus. But by changing the focus on the lens, I can control which part of the frame is in focus. And for consistency, we have our friend the rock here, just in case you thought I picked up a blurry rock. So now, because I have tilted the lens, I've got complete control over which element of the frame I focus on. If you're unfamiliar with how a tilt shift lens works, then here are the basics. The tilting of the lens refers to the pivoting motion, controlled by the dial on the side of the lens. You can tilt the lens towards your subject, providing more depth of field, or away from your subject for less. Since the lens can be rotated whilst mounted to your camera, both tilting and shifting movements can be made horizontally and vertically. The shifting feature is primarily why architectural photographers love these lenses so much, as it allows you to photograph taller buildings without using a wider lens or angling your camera up at the building, which creates distortion, known as keystoning. You can shift the lens up or down to control the perceived height of the camera. Okay, back to me on the beach. So now that I've got complete control over which element of my composition is in focus, that's the concept behind the bokeh project. And if you're curious, the tilt shift lens was actually designed for the opposite reason, to create more depth of field. So I'm actually doing the opposite of what this tool was designed for. Now, if you were to use one of these lenses incorrectly like me, you'll get what's known as the Toy Town effect. And the reason for that is because it's not possible really to have such a large subject as a building with some of it in focus and some of it not in focus, especially when you're using a wide angle lens. So that's why it looks like a miniature model, because if you were to use a macro lens, then you would be able to achieve the same effect. You can of course recreate this in Photoshop, but where's the fun in that? Okay, let's head to Brighton for sunset because there are way more lights there. So I am now shooting on the Canon EOS R and the 24mm tilt shift lens. We're about an hour and a half to 2 hours off sunset. You can probably see my own shadow here. And if you are thinking of doing a similar project, then the sweet spot is around twilight. That's when the brightness of the sky and the artificial lighting is roughly the same exposure. All right, let's take some photographs and then I'm going to mix those in with some that I've taken over the years. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this behind the scenes of my personal project, how I made it and the thought process. This is not done yet. I've got lots of ideas, thinking about introducing artificial light and water and mist and fog, lots of ideas. So this is definitely not done yet, but it's a work in progress. So if you've got any questions, then let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Man, this place is busy. This is such a good idea, Ben. You should always film on Brighton Beach on a bank holiday weekend, especially if it's sunny and the police are around.